Part 1: The phone call. My name is Fiona Young, and I was 34 years old when I discovered that blood doesn't always make a family. The lesson began on a Tuesday night at exactly 8:14 p.m. Rain tapped softly against the hospital window while machines beeped around my 9-year-old daughter Cora. She had been fighting leukemia for nearly 2 years. We thought we had one. We thought remission meant normal life would finally return. We were wrong. 3 weeks earlier her blood tests had changed. Then came more tests. More waiting. More doctors avoiding eye contact. Finally, one word shattered everything. Relapse. Now Cora lay asleep beneath a thin blanket while chemotherapy dripped through a tube into her arm. Her skin looked pale beneath the fluorescent lights, but somehow she still managed to smile whenever I entered the room. 90 minutes away, my 2 younger sons, Theo and Wyatt, were asleep at home, and I had nobody to watch them. For years I had handled everything alone. After my divorce, there was no backup plan. No second parent rushing through the door. No grandparents volunteering to help. Just me. I worked as a freelance writer from a small 2-bedroom rental house. Every bill, every grocery trip, every school form depended on me. But that night, for the first time in my life, I couldn't solve the problem alone. I stared at my phone. One name sat at the top of my contacts list. Mom. My fingers trembled as I pressed call. The phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Finally she answered. Hello. I swallowed hard. Mom. It's Cora. The words came slowly as I explained the situation. The relapse. The hospital. The boys at home. The impossible distance between everything that needed me. Then I asked the question I never thought I would ask. Could you help with Theo and Wyatt for a little while? Silence filled the line. For a moment I thought she might actually say yes. Instead she sighed. And everything changed. Part 2: You chose this life. The silence on the phone lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like forever. My mother took a slow breath before speaking. How long is this supposed to go on? The question caught me off guard. I don't know, I answered quietly. The doctors weren't making promises anymore. Another pause. Then came the next question. Have you ever thought about how difficult this is for everyone else? I stared at the hospital hallway. Everyone else? Cora was fighting cancer. Theo and Wyatt were sleeping without knowing their sister might not come home for a long time. And somehow my mother was talking about herself. Mom, I said carefully, I'm not asking for money. Silence. I'm just asking if someone can stay with the boys while I'm here. Her voice hardened immediately. Fiona, you chose this life. The words hit harder than I expected. You chose to have 3 children. You chose to become a writer. You chose to live this way. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My daughter had leukemia. This wasn't a bad financial decision. This wasn't a career mistake. This was cancer. Mom. No, she interrupted. We already have plans. Plans. That single word echoed inside my head. I could hear a television in the background. My father was there. Listening. Saying nothing. Just like he always did. We have our own lives now, my mother continued. We can't keep solving your problems. I looked through the hospital room window. Cora was sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that her grandmother had just refused to help. For several seconds I couldn't speak. Then I whispered one word. Okay. Not because I agreed. Not because I understood. Because there was nothing left to say. The call ended. I stood alone in the stairwell holding my phone. For the first time in my life I realized something painful. Some people stop being family long before they stop being relatives. And deep down I knew. Part the second no. The next morning, I stared at my phone for nearly 10 minutes before dialing Mark's number. I didn't want to call him. But Cora was his daughter too. No matter what had happened between us, surely he would care about this. The call connected after 3 rings. Instead of Mark, a woman's voice answered. Belle. His new wife. Hello. It's Fiona, I said. A brief silence followed. Then I explained everything. Cora's relapse. The hospital. The boys at home. The impossible situation I was trapped in. I wasn't asking for money. I wasn't asking for favors. I was asking their father to help care for his own children. For a moment Belle said nothing. Then I heard a small laugh. Not a happy laugh. The kind people make when they think someone is ridiculous. I felt my stomach tighten. Finally she spoke. You're still doing that writing thing? I blinked. What? The freelance writing. Her voice sounded amused. Then came the sentence that would stay with me for the next year. You're just a poor writer. Deal with it. The hallway suddenly felt colder. I couldn't believe what I had heard. My daughter was fighting cancer. And this was her response. Before I could answer, the phone shifted. Mark had taken it. Relief flooded through me. Maybe he would fix this. Maybe he would step up. Maybe he would remember he was Cora's father. Instead, he spoke only one sentence. Now isn't a good time for us. That was it. No questions. No concern. No offer to help. Just an excuse. Then the line went dead. I stared at the screen. 2 calls. 2 families. 2 chances. Both gone. For a few seconds I stood perfectly still. Then something inside me changed. The waiting ended. The hoping ended. The believing that someone would rescue us ended. If Cora was going to survive this fight, it would be because we survived it ourselves. And for the first time since her relapse, I stopped looking for help. I started Part for the woman next door. The day after Mark's call, I stopped expecting anyone to save us. I sat in the hospital cafeteria with a notebook and began making lists. Every dollar, every mile, every hour, everything had to be planned. My bank account was shrinking faster than I could earn. Every day at the hospital meant another day without work. Every day without work meant another unpaid bill. The math wasn't difficult. The future was. That afternoon I drove home to check on Theo and Wyatt. The boys ran toward me the second I opened the door. Wyatt wrapped himself around my leg. Theo looked up hopefully. Is Cora coming home today? The question broke my heart. I forced a smile. Not today, buddy. His shoulders dropped. He nodded quietly. He was trying to be brave. Children do that when they think adults need help. As I stood in the kitchen wondering how I would survive another week, a knock sounded at the door. I opened it. Mrs. Linkford stood there. She lived 2 houses away. 78 years old. Widowed. Always carrying peppermint candies in her purse. She held a casserole dish in both hands. I made too much, she said. The excuse was terrible. We both knew it. Then she looked past me toward the boys. How are you managing? The question was simple. Nobody had asked it before. Not really. And suddenly I couldn't answer. Mrs. Linkford saw everything in my face. The exhaustion. The fear. The loneliness. She nodded slowly. Then she said something I will never forget. Tomorrow morning, I'll take the boys before school. I blinked. What? You heard me. I can't ask you to do that. You didn't. I stared at her. Mrs. Linkford. She smiled. Fiona, sometimes people help because they want to. No conditions. No criticism. No lectures. Just kindness. The kind I had been searching for in all the wrong places. As she walked back toward her house, I realized something. The people who share your Part 5, the photo that changed everything. The next few weeks became a blur of highways, hospital rooms, and sleepless nights. Every morning started before sunrise. I would leave the boys with Mrs. Linkford, drive 90 minutes to the hospital, spend the day beside Cora, work on freelance assignments during treatment, then drive home after dark. Some nights I slept. Most nights I didn't. The oncology floor had its own version of time. Days were measured by blood tests, medication schedules, and the sound of monitors. One evening, while I was working outside Cora's room, a nurse stopped beside me. Her name tag read, Angela. She looked at the untouched sandwich next to my laptop. You should eat something, she said. I'm fine. She raised an eyebrow. That's what every exhausted parent says. 20 minutes later she returned carrying 2 pudding cups. She placed one beside me. No questions. No pity. Just kindness. For the first time in weeks I smiled. Inside the room, Cora was laughing during a video call with her brothers. Watching her laugh made everything feel normal for a moment. But normal never lasted long. A few days later, while sitting in the family lodging room, I opened my phone and checked the family group chat. Still nothing. No messages. No calls. No questions about Cora. No offers to help. Just silence. Then I noticed something strange. My mother had posted a photo. A garden club luncheon. 12 smiling women around a decorated table. My mother stood in the center holding a drink and laughing. The caption read, "So blessed." I stared at the picture longer than I should have. Something about it bothered me. Then I noticed the timestamp. 8:14 p.m. My stomach dropped. That was the exact time I had called her during Cora's medical emergency. The exact moment she hadn't answered. My hands began shaking. I checked again. Same date. Same time. While I was standing beside my daughter's hospital bed begging FO. Part 6. The night everything shook. That night started like every other night in the hospital. Quiet hallway. Dim lights. Machines breathing in rhythm with sleeping children. Cora had finally fallen asleep after a long day of treatment. I sat beside her bed, watching her chest rise and fall, trying to convince myself that stable meant safe. It didn't. At 8:14 p.m. my phone rang. Unknown number. I ignored it. Then Cora moved. At first it was small restlessness, a slight shift in her breathing. Then her monitor beeped faster. Too fast. A nurse rushed in almost immediately. Angela was right behind her. "What's happening?" I asked, already standing. Angela's face had changed. "Not panic. Focus. Her fever is spiking," she said. Another nurse arrived. Then another. Within minutes the room filled. Gloves. Machines. Urgent voices. Cora's temperature climbed higher. The monitor lines became jagged. I held her hand. "Mom," she whispered weakly. "I'm here," I said. "I'm right here." But inside I was breaking. A doctor stepped in, reading the chart quickly. "Possible infection," he said sharply. The word hung in the air like a warning siren. Infection during chemo wasn't just serious. It was dangerous. Life-threatening. They started 4 lines. Adjusted medication. Moved quickly like they were racing something invisible. I stood frozen in the corner. Useless in a room full of action. My phone vibrated again. Same unknown number. I didn't answer. I couldn't. All I could see was my daughter's pale face under 2 bright hospital lights. Her breathing was shallow. Her hand still gripping mine. "Stay with me," I whispered. Minutes stretched. Time stopped existing. Then slowly the monitor stabilized. Her fever stopped climbing. The doctor exhaled. "Stabilizing," he said. The room didn't relax immediately. Nobody trusted the calm yet. Neither did I. When the nurses finally stepped back, Angela stayed behind. She looked at Part 7, the message they couldn't ignore. After that night, something inside me stopped shaking. Not because things got easier. They didn't. But because I finally stopped expecting rescue. The next morning, Cora was stable again. Weak but stable. The doctors called it a small victory. In a place like this, small victories are everything. I sat in the family lodging room with a cold cup of coffee and opened my phone. The family group chat was still there. The same silence. The same unread messages. Something in me snapped quietly. Not loudly. Not emotionally. Just final. I typed a message. Slowly. Carefully. No anger. Just truth. Cora is still in hospital. Last night she almost crashed. I needed help. No one came. I stared at it for a long time before pressing send. Delivered. Read. 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 My mother saw it. My father saw it. Everyone saw it. Still nothing. No response. No apology. No question. Just digital silence pretending to be nothing. I closed the app. For the first time I didn't feel hurt. I felt clear. Later that day I had to call Mark again. Not because I wanted to. Because I had no other choice. The boys needed stability. And I was running out of ways to provide it alone. He answered quickly this time. Belle was there too. I could hear her in the background. I didn't waste time. "I need help," I said. There was a pause. Then Belle's voice came on. Still sharp. Still cold. "Is this going to become a habit?" I closed my eyes. "No," I said quietly. "It's already been a crisis." Silence. Then Mark spoke. "You're overwhelmed." Not concern. Observation. Like I was a problem he was diagnosing. Then Belle said something worse. "You always make everything dramatic." Something in me shifted again. But this time I didn't break. I steadied. My voice came out calm. Too calm. Cora almost died last night. Another pause. Then Mark said the sentence that confirmed everything. We can't get. Part 8. The people who stayed. After the call with Mark, I stopped making emotional decisions. Everything became practical. What needed to be done. Who could do what. What I could afford to lose. And what I absolutely couldn't. That morning, Mrs. Linkford was already outside my house when I arrived. She didn't knock. She just waved at Theo and Wyatt like she had been part of their lives forever. School day, she said simply. Wyatt hesitated. Theo looked at me. I nodded. They went with her without argument. No fear. No confusion. Just trust. I watched them leave and felt something strange. Relief. Not guilt. Relief. At the hospital, Angela was already working when I arrived. She didn't ask about my night. She just handed me a warm cup of tea. You look like you didn't sleep, she said. I didn't. She nodded like that was expected. Eat anyway. There was no drama in her care. No emotional weight. Just consistency. And consistency was becoming the only thing holding me together. Later that afternoon, Dennis, the hospital's social worker, sat down beside me. He opened a folder. I've been looking at your situation, he said. I almost laughed. My situation. Part 9. The system that broke and the one that built. Dennis didn't speak for a moment after opening the folder. He just looked at the papers like they were heavier than they should be. I'm going to be honest with you, he said finally. That's usually dangerous, I replied without thinking. He gave a small tired smile. This situation isn't sustainable. I already knew that. I had known it for weeks. Months maybe. But hearing it from someone else made it real in a different way. He started listing options. Emergency assistance programs. Temporary childcare support. Hospital-linked family housing extensions. Each sentence sounded like hope dressed in paperwork. But every option had limits. Income thresholds. Waiting lists. Eligibility rules that didn't care about timing. Or cancer. Or exhaustion. When he finished, I sat back slowly. So basically, I said, there's help if you're not already drowning. He didn't deny it. That was answer enough. Later that evening, Angela found me in the hallway again. This time I was staring at my laptop but not working. Just frozen. She sat beside me without asking. You're thinking too much, she said. I don't have the luxury not to. She looked at me. Everyone thinks that, she said softly. Until they stop surviving and start living. That line stayed with me longer than I expected. That night, something unexpected happened. A knock on the lodging room door. I opened it cautiously. A small group of hospital staff stood there. Angela was in front. Behind her, 2 nurses I barely knew. And a plastic container. We cooked too much, Angela said. Again. The same excuse. But this time I understood it. It wasn't about food. It was about presence. They stepped inside. No speeches. No pity. Just shared silence and warm food on a cheap table. Theo and Wyatt were on video call with Cora. All 3 laughing at something stupid Theo had said. For the first time in weeks I didn't. Part 10. The date that didn't lie. I thought I had already seen the worst of it. I was wrong. The next morning started like survival had become routine. Theo and Wyatt were with Mrs. Linkford. Cora was stable but weak. I was working between hospital chairs and borrowed time. And my phone kept reminding me of everything I didn't have. Unread messages. No replies. Empty space where family used to feel like something. I told myself I was done looking. Done hoping. But grief has habits. And mine still checked. That afternoon while Cora slept, I made a mistake. I opened the family group chat again. Not because I expected anything. Just muscle memory. That's when I saw it. A photo. My mother. Smiling. Garden club again. Different day. Same perfect posture of happiness. The caption. Beautiful afternoon with my girls, 2 hearts. 41 likes. My chest tightened. Then I noticed something I almost missed. The timestamp. 8:14 p.m. Same time. Same pattern. My brain refused it at first. So I checked again. Zoomed in. Compared. And then I understood. The night Cora almost died. The night I called for help. The night no one answered. They weren't unavailable. They weren't asleep. They were posting, living, smiling, choosing silence over me in real time. My hand started shaking. Not from sadness anymore. From clarity. I left the hospital room and stood in the stairwell until my breathing slowed. For the first time I wasn't asking why. I already knew why. Because I had proof. Real time-stamped, undeniable proof. And something inside me shifted permanently. I stopped defending them in my head. Stopped rewriting their absence into something softer. There was no softer version. Only truth. Later that night, Angela found me sitting alone. She didn't ask what was wrong. She already knew, I think. Instead, she sat beside me and said quietly, "You look like you've stopped waiting." I nodded. I have. She didn't smile. She just. Part 11. When the door finally opens. I didn't plan the confrontation. It just arrived. Like all real endings do. It was late afternoon when I got the message. Not from my mother. Not from Mark. From my father. One line. "We should talk." No apology. No context. Just that. For a moment, I stared at it trying to feel something. Anger. Hope. Numbness. But all I felt was distance. Still I replied, "Come if you want." That night I left Cora sleeping in the hospital room. Angela was on shift. She gave me a look that said she understood more than I was saying. "Go," she said softly. "We've got her." It was the first time I trusted someone enough to walk away. The house felt different when I arrived. Not warmer. Not colder. Just final. My mother was already there. Sitting like she owned the silence. My father stood near the window. Same quiet posture he had my entire life. Mark arrived last. Belle wasn't with him. That alone surprised me. Nobody spoke for a full minute. Then my mother broke it. "We got your messages." Not "we're sorry." Just acknowledgement. I nodded slowly. "I know." Another silence. Then I said the thing I had rehearsed without realizing. "Why didn't anyone come when I asked?" My mother sighed like I was repeating an old complaint. "We have our own lives, Fiona." That sentence again. The same one. Like it explained everything. I looked at her carefully. "No," I said quietly. "You have your life. I had mine. And my daughter had cancer in hers." That word changed the room. Cancer. It always does. My father shifted slightly but said nothing. Mark finally spoke. "You made it sound worse than it was." That was it. That was the moment something in me stopped being flexible. I laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. Worse than it was? I repeated. I pulled out my phone. Opened the photo. The timestamp. 8:14 p.m. I showed them. This is the exact minute I call. Part 12. The family I chose. The morning after I closed that door, something felt different. Not lighter. Not heavier. Just final. I went back to the hospital before sunrise. Cora was awake when I arrived. Weak but smiling. "Mom," she whispered. "You look different." I almost laughed. Maybe I am. Angela was already there, checking vitals like it was just another day, but when she saw me, she gave a small nod. No questions. No judgment. Just presence. That had become the theme of my life. Presence. Not promises. Not bloodlines. Presence. Later that week, the doctors used a word I had been waiting months to hear. Improving. Not cured. Not finished. But moving in the right direction. It felt like breathing again after drowning. Theo and Wyatt came running into the hospital room that evening, escorted by Mrs. Linkford. Wyatt immediately climbed onto the bed. Theo held Cora's hand like he was afraid she might disappear if he let go. For a moment, all three of my children were in the same room again. And it didn't feel impossible anymore. It felt real. I looked around. Mrs. Linkford sitting quietly in the corner. Angela checking Cora's chart. Dennis walking past the doorway and giving a small thumbs up. None of them were related to me. None of them shared my name. But they were here. And that was everything. That night, after everyone left, I sat beside Cora. She was half asleep. Her voice soft. "Mom, are we okay now?" I hesitated. because the truth was complicated. Then I said the only honest thing I could. We are getting there. She smiled. That small tired smile that had carried me through everything. Outside the hospital window, the world kept moving like nothing had changed. But inside that room everything had. Because I finally understood something I spent years trying not to see. Family is not who you are born to. It's who refuses to leave when leaving would be easier. And who stays